In this video, I will show you how I make these cute little beanbagged frogs. They are very easy and fun to make. They're just two pieces, a top piece and a bottom piece. They have a seam at the nose and at the bum. All you will need to make this frog is a small piece or two of fabric, thread, stuffing like poly pellets, rice, beans, or fiberfill. And of course, safety eyes, buttons, beads, or whatever you choose for the eyes. You can purchase the pattern from my Etsy shop at the link in the description. First, get your fabric. You can use a top color and a bottom color, or you can make the frog all one color. In this video, I will make a frog with green on top and off-white for the bottom, so you can see the difference as I sew. Take your fabric with the right side up and fold it so right sides are together. The right side of the fabric is the side that will show when your frog is finished. Once the fabric is folded, place the straight edge of the frog even with the fold of the fabric, as indicated on the pattern. Once you have it where it needs to be, pin it in place. Now you'll do the same thing for the bottom of the frog. Fold the fabric so you use as little as possible by placing it close to the edges. Once you have it in place, pin it down. Now you're ready to cut the frog out. The more precise you cut the fabric, the nicer your frog will turn out to be. Before you take the pattern off the frog top piece, you will need to mark the fabric along the dotted lines at the nose and the bum, as well as the eye mark. I like to use a heat erase pen because it won't show when I'm done. You want to make sure you mark and sew these lines in the right spot, or the frog top will not match up with the frog bottom. Now take a pin out of the head and mark the eye mark. You want to make sure you can see the eye mark on the right side of the fabric on both sides of the frog's face. The heat erase pens bleed through the fabric nicely, so I put a lot of ink on and let it soak through until I see the mark on both sides. Now I'll take the pins out and replace a couple of them back in, so the frog top stays folded where it needs to be. Next thing to do is sew along the line at the nose and bum of the frog. Now that the lines are sewn, take the pins out and open up the frog top. Take the pattern off the frog bottom. Some fabrics are hard to tell which is the right side, so lay it with whichever side you think is the right side, facing up. Then lay the frog top piece right side down so right sides are together. Line up the edges as best you can. I find it easiest to line up and pin the front legs first, then the nose, and pin it. You want to be precise with the face to make it look as nice as you can. Continue pinning the rest of the legs and sides. If the line at the nose and the bum were sewn correctly, then the top and the bottom should line up well, which they do on this one. Now that the frog is pinned together, sew around him starting on the inside of his leg, then go all around him, stopping on the other side. This way you will leave about 2 inches open at the back of the frog. You will use this open area to turn him right side out and stuff him. On the small frog, you'll leave 1/8 inch seam allowance as indicated on the pattern. The larger frog sizes leave 1/4 inch seam allowance. As you sew around the small curves, sew slowly and pull on your fabric to turn it as you go. Be careful not to fold or pucker the fabric. When you get to a corner, or if you need to turn faster than you are able to by applying pressure to the fabric, then stop with your needle down. Raise the presser foot and turn the fabric just a little. Lower the presser foot and do a few more stitches. Repeat this as often as needed. It is important to make smooth, even curves. The smoother your stitch line, the nicer your frog will turn out. When you get to the center seam on the nose, it helps make the seam lay flatter and gives a better transition. If you fold the seam allowance toward your machine to sew across it, when you finish sewing around the frog, flip it over and check the bottom side. Make sure you didn't miss the edge of the fabric anywhere on the bottom. If you did miss, sew over that area again. Use your scissors to snip the seam allowance at all corners and curves. Snip almost to, but never through your stitch line. Snip a few times where the legs meet the head. Trim the curve about every 1/4 inch. Snipping the seams will help alleviate tension at the curves and make the edges of your frog much smoother. So this is an important step. You'll notice that I didn't snip the seam allowance at the opening, that you don't need to snip, only where the stitching is. Now that the seam allowance is snipped, you can begin turning your frog right side out through the opening. If you have a difficult time turning the frog right side out, that is an indicator that the opening you left may be a little too small. After you get it mostly turned out, use a dowel or something similar to press the seams out. I used the dowel that came with my fiberfill stuffing. Push the seams out and run the dowel along the edges and curves to press them out. This is going to be a cute little frog. In this video, I will be using buttons for eyes, but if you want to use safety eyes, this would be the time to apply them. First, you would pinch the top layer fabric to fold it at the eye mark. Then use just the tip of your scissors to snip a small hole, just big enough, or the eye post to go through. Do this to both eye marks. Then you would put the eye post through the hole. Then reach through the opening on his bum and find the back of the eye post sticking through. Once you find the post sticking into the frog, place the back piece on the post to lock it in place. If you are sewing beads or buttons on for eyes, then you will apply them last, as I will show you. Now you're ready to stuff your frog. A great option for making them into bean bags is poly pellets. They're great for toys because they're washable. However, a cheaper option would be rice or small beans. If you are using poly pellets, a funnel can be very helpful to get the beads inside him. The small frog takes about 2.5 ounces of poly pellets. The medium and large frogs take about 5.5 and 10 ounces respectively. You want to stuff a beanbag lightly so it is loose and floppy, yet still holds a nice shape. I'm going to use fiberfill for the frog in this video. You can use the dowel to help press the fiberfill into the limbs to stuff it evenly and form a smoothly shaped frog. Feel around and make sure there are no lumps or empty spots. Once you are satisfied with how your frog is filled, you can sew it shut. I like to use a hidden stitch, which is sometimes called a ladder stitch, to sew my frogs shut. But you can use a whip stitch if you prefer. I could go into how to do those stitches, but there are plenty of tutorials available on YouTube for them. Now that the frog is sewn shut, it is time to apply the eyes. I will use buttons for the frog in this video. Begin by knotting your thread at one eye mark. Then loop the thread through the holes on the button. Run the thread down through the same eye mark and come out at the other eye mark. Then sew the second button on. Continue running a few stitches through each side until the buttons are secure. Alternatively, especially for the larger frogs, you can sew one button on one side. Then knot it and sew the other button on the other side. Finally, knot your thread under one of the eyes and your frog is done. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Best wishes for you in your sewing endeavors.